Hello there everyone, and welcome back to Canine Cannibalism. Today we are going to be taking a look at... One moment, I have a pile of books on my desk. 8-Bit Apocalypse by Amanda Billings. The book is 70 pages, broken up into 18 chapters. I will give you a quick blurb. There is an evil Atari game cartridge that grows massive and becomes sentient, and then turns an entire city into a board for various games. This is not an extreme horror novel. This is a bizarro novella, so not extreme. If you are unfamiliar with my videos, we are going to be doing a few things in this video. We are going to be going through a content sample, which is just essentially a novelty trigger warning kind of thing. We are going to be going through a general review of the book, in which I will give you different ratings for various aspects of the book. I will give you a plot summary, and then we'll be out of here for this one. No, I don't think I have anything to say after the plot summary, discussion-wise, but I might. So, that being said, we're going to jump into a content sample now. As I said, not an extreme horror novel. You're a little crooked. Let me just fix you a little bit. Am I still centered? Because I centered myself with the camera crooked. Maybe a little over here. Sure, we'll go with that. Content sample. So, if you were to pick up a copy of 8-Bit Apocalypse by Amanda Billings and read it, you would find all of the following. You have gore, mutilation, and death. And then you also have child abuse. And that's your content sample. So, that out of the way, we're going to get into a general review now. I've got one thing to say before we jump into ratings, and that is, I made a complaint in what is for me the last video. I am trying to get to like 4 or 5 videos ahead of what's being published. For me on Friday, I just published the Lost in Cat Brainland video by Cameron Pierce. I had a lot of complaints about that book, and in that video, I said that I hope that All Bizarro isn't like this, because if it is, I'm going to have a rough time. Clearly, All Bizarro is not like this, because I actually enjoyed this book. It was narratively driven. It did not feel like, let's just throw a bunch of shit at the page. Shit at the words. Let's just throw a bunch of shit at the page and see what sticks. A bunch of random concoctions of various words that sound interesting. Narratively driven. Still manages to be very weird, very bizarre. And unfortunately, I think this is this author's only book. This was part of what seems to be a limited series trying to shine the spotlight on lesser-known bizarro authors. And then I read the whole blurb. There's a little thing about what this essentially is. And then there's I believe, an editor's note going over how this works. Essentially, several hundred copies of this book needed to sell for them to be able to publish her works in the future again, which I think is a very interesting concept, and I'm happy that a genre such as bizarro, or the biggest printing house in the genre bizarro, was willing to take that sort of risk to shine the spotlight on lesser known authors. I really appreciate that, as somebody who reads a lot, likes to write, that kind of thing. But as far as I can tell, this is her only book, which is kind of disappointing, because as you'll see when I get to the ratings, there's a lot of stuff I like about this book, especially the way that it's written. Clearly, this author knows what the fuck she's doing. So, I don't know. I checked her Goodreads out. It might just be a case where nothing caught my eye because I was looking specifically for other bizarro books by her. But it doesn't seem to me that she's written any more bizarro, at least. So, but sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. Sometimes you have one idea for a book and you never publish anything else. Things get in the way. That's just life. We're going to get into ratings. Now, I have a good bit to say on this topic. These first numbers are rated on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being not good, or not good at all, 10 being really, really good, 5 being mediocre, not good, not bad. For 8-Bit Apocalypse by Amanda Billings, your plot and plot direction is going to be a 6. I was actually decently interested throughout my reading to see where the story would go. Now, as I said, 70 pages, short book. I was able to read it almost entirely in one sitting, but I could have read it all in one, let's say, 2 hour sitting. It was pretty decent. I really just did enjoy the plot direction. I was excited to see where it would go. So that's a 6. Your tone? Your tone's going to be a 7. I wrote a lot about the prose specifically, and I will say that most of these things have more to do with just the way the book is written, the prose, but the book is very disjointed, almost disassociated. Another comparison to Cameron Pierce's book that I read. There was a tone throughout a lot of the stories that was very dissociated from the actual plot, and that same surrealist vibe is pervasive throughout this text, and I really did enjoy it in this case. I thought it worked incredibly well to help the plot. It made me feel very disoriented, and I think that was kind of the point. It was done very well. I'll get more into it when I talk about the prose as a whole, but for now, tone 7. Characters and character development, it's a 5. We've got like one character. There are some minor characters, but not really important, not really fleshed out. Our main character is decently fleshed out. We know a lot about him by the end of the book. It's a 5. Grammar and typos is also a 5. I didn't notice any typos. I didn't notice any strange grammatical issues. It's a 5. Your dialogue is also going to be a 5. I didn't notice it. There weren't any scenes that stood out to me as being like, well, I don't know how the fuck anyone would say that kind of thing. There weren't any instances of dialogue that jumped out of the page at me. It was there. I didn't even notice it. Your prose is also going to be a 7. As I said, more, again, tone, prose, kind of like hand in hand here. It's an interesting, somewhat jarring meld of third-person present and then some first-person introspection from our main character. And I liked it quite a bit. It adds decently to the whole surrealist feel of the book. It's very dissociated. The tone is very dissociated, and it comes through very well. It's all written overall very strangely in a way that complements itself. And the plot isn't really that crazy, right? Like comparing this to the tamest thing that was in that Cameron Pierce book, really not that insane. There's a giant game cartridge. I probably watched like 3 horror movies that are as equally insane as this, and were just completely normal, right? A giant game cartridge killing people, that's not really that outlandish. Fucking Killer Sofa, horror movie example, was more outrageous than this, right? And that movie was like mostly normal, aside from being a really zany comedy that sucked dick, but whatever. That's a tangent. Not really a very weird plot, but because of the way it's written, the prose, the tone that jumps out of the book, it comes across as really, really, really fucking bizarre, and I think it was done incredibly well. So, personal enjoyment is going to be a 6. I did really enjoy the plot. I enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed the prose. I wouldn't say I, like, loved the book or anything, but it was better than just fucking meh. It was good. It was a good book. It was a decent book. It's a high 6. These next 2 numbers are rated on a scale from 0 to 10, and these are your disturbing factor and your gross out factor. 0 is not disturbing, not gross. 10 is the most disturbing, the most gross. For your disturbing factor, it's a 0. It's not really disturbing. There are some scenes involving death, but it's too surrealist and whimsical at certain points to be taken seriously. And your gross out factor is also a 0. Nothing gross in this book. That's your ratings. We're going to get into a plot summary now. Massive spoiler warning, obviously. I'm going to tell you some of the major plot points. My summary is super, super short this time. As always, I purposefully leave things out so that if you were to go and read the book, you will have a very different experience. Leave things out, that is to say, that you could keep in a given summary. I purposefully make my summaries even shorter than necessary in order to let you have a different experience if you go and read the book. I would highly recommend you go and read this book, go find a copy of it, support the author, yada yada blah blah. That being said, plot summary. Our protagonist, Jimmy, is working a dead-end job at Chuck E. Cheese. In his youth, he was a gaming prodigy, but he has since lost his gaming abilities. On one lazy afternoon, a giant Atari cartridge, birthed by the fusing and irradiating of hundreds of cartridges buried and discarded in the New Mexico desert, crash lands in the city center. Jimmy, possessed by some need he does not understand, runs toward it. The cartridge animates a number of trains and buses, turning the city into several different games of Centipede. Jimmy realizes that they have to play the games as they are intended, and manages to beat one of the games by firing a gun from the correct spot in relation to the centipede. Jimmy, after beating this game, gets grabbed by the government. They have him help them beat the rest of the centipede games, at which point the cartridge begins a game of Frogger. A number of government men manage to beat this game as well, at which point the cartridge animates all of the cars and vehicles in the city and turns them into a giant game of Space Invaders. After being crashed into by numerous fighter jets during the Space Invaders fight, the cartridge glitches out and begins a game of Donkey Kong. Jimmy, recalling how he lost a Donkey Kong tournament in his youth, and how that loss was the beginning of the end for his gaming skills, rushes toward the cartridge. He climbs the scaffolding erected by the cartridge and manages to reach the Pauline, which was the woman at the end of the game that you were trying to reach, just as the cartridge explodes. He and the Pauline woman land on the pile of bodies collected around the base of the cartridge and manage to survive. And that's the book. There's a lot that I'm not getting into about Jimmy's character, about how his mental state works, that adds a lot to the dissociated feel. But I mean, like I was saying earlier, from that description there, that little summary, this book really wouldn't come off as that bizarre. I mean, giant game cartridge, sure. But trust me, reading it, entirely different experience. And yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Shorter one today, at least comparatively to my other recent videos that have been around 30 minutes. I'm not doing that on purpose. I just kind of talk and start talking and then don't end up cutting out a lot because a lot of it is how I envisioned the video going. So it's not like I'm sitting here and just yapping at you on purpose. I end up saying a lot of shit that I end up thinking is worth keeping in the video. Trust me, sometimes the videos that I film are 45 minutes and then I cut out 15 minutes. So, but shorter video today, at least comparatively, probably around 13 minutes looking at how long I've been recording. So my opinions are my opinions and my opinions alone. I would highly recommend you go and read this book, form your own opinions. That's always good. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I read all of my comments. I'll drop you a heart, drop you a like, respond if necessary, or if applicable to the situation. And yeah, see ya.